Don't you do that. Don't you do that. Wait. Wait. That's how good she is.
Welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. I want to start with kind of posing a general question because all of your characters have secrets, I would say, of various magnitudes. And Sterling, I know when we talked before, you said you're the kind of actor who wants to know everything up front.
Sure.
And Juliet, I think you got like the first 4 episodes from Dan Fogelman, the creator, when he was pitching Sinatra to you. So I'm curious, for everyone, when did you kind of know your character's full story arc, and how did knowing or not knowing, if you did it, really inform your performance? John?
Oh, you must have been me.
Yes.
I guess in retrospect, it was rolled out gradually. I remember knowing some at the audition going in, and then actually being handed extra pages during the audition process, and learning things that retroactively affected the way I felt about what I had just done, and so I felt like I didn't know myself anymore. And then I guess we got on set knowing the first 3 or 4, but you kept looking at each other suspiciously as you would come to work each day. You would learn something and then suddenly doubt the person's motivations. So I don't know if I remember clearly, but it was definitely a rollout. It was like a whodunit being at work every single day.
I love that.
He killed it though. He killed it. John Beaver.
Absolutely.
Like John, was like getting things bit by bit, and I will say, like, it took me a good few weeks to even get my sea legs, because I was just staring at Sterling and James and Julianne and just being like, I cannot believe I'm working with these actors. Like, they're just so insanely talented and prolific, and this library of work that just makes your head swim. So I feel like in the beginning I just was really like trying to get my bearings and like understand what's happening. And then as time rolled on, I was just amazed by the stuff you see. Like, you can have an idea about what's going to happen in the world, but it's not until you actually get your eyes on the episodes and are reading the words. And I'll say that at the end of episode 4, I just openly wept. I was like, I don't want that.
Same.
I don't want that. Take that back.
Yes.
Right?
Right, we're gonna get to you. Anybody? Go ahead.
I feel with Gabriella the moment I was handed the material, I enjoy playing bad girls. I want to be a villain. And Gabriella was very earnest and saw the good in everybody, and I was like, that's boring. Like, I want to have an ulterior motive, I want to be plotting something, so it's been fun hearing the stories about her. But yeah, it was very early on. I think I wanted to make some choices that felt like a Disney villain. And Dan was like, no, you're good. You're like the only good one. So yeah.
Don't you do that. Wait. That's how good she is. Let me tell you. Before she even says anything. All right, you guys. I did a play. I don't know if I shared this. I did this play called Intimate Apparel. Does anybody know this play? Okay. I did Intimate Apparel at the Guthrie Theater. And I'm this guy that everybody falls in love with in the first half of the play. And in the second half of the play, they're like, this Negro. Okay? I would come out for curtain call every night, man. to a chorus of vociferous boo. And I was like, baby, I'm Sterling. And y'all gotta know sometimes there's a sweet girl. Sweet girl who's a very good actress. So please don't move her.
Look,
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm not even mad. That's how good she is.
Look, I get it. When I read for Jane, I thought she was super sweet and nice, and then it was revealed to me that she did what she does to Billy, and I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, I hope she killed the president too. Like, I was like, yes, I was like, let's just keep going. But no, it's very fun. It's very fun to play sort of in type and then very against type. So that's been
I'll also
to
say
explore.
it continues to unfold because we get a little bit more information about Jane in season 2.
And you remember when you thought I was bad at the end of episode 3? So you never know. She can redeem herself.
I was just going to say, I continue to learn who Sinatra is. We're filming season 2 now, and with Dan's incredible use of flashbacks and every episode I learn more about her. Can I just take a minute to say, how great is Sterling? Yes. And then we worked together, so then like it grew, and then to watch him just keep this passion for the show, the craft, the people you work with, you blow me away every day. So, thank you.
Amen.
I think Christian is the executive producer in you know, right now in this moment for this series, and I know it was important for you to do something people hadn't seen you in before, kind of take the reins. What did being EP and the lead in a thriller, something you hadn't done before, kind of mean to you? Why was that important for you with this title?
I don't know exactly if I would say it was important, but it did feel like a natural evolution of where I was in my career. I kind of felt like even on This Is Us, none of us were producers, but Dan was so collaborative in terms of allowing us all to go into the writer's room, sort of hear what the stories were, give personal stories about our life that might add a little bit of color to what was happening. So it felt like a natural progression of what I was accustomed to from that process. And then I think for me, more than anything, I think Dan would echo this, is the days are long and they can be hard. And if you get a chance to spend them with good people, then they're that much easier. And I got a chance to spend my days with really great people. So that's
Well, I'm gonna come back to you. You know, as Chris said at the end of episode 4, like, why did this happen? That's very much how I felt. I asked Dan Fogelman, why did that happen? You know, and he said to me, you know, the risk wasn't in killing your character, it was in dedicating, you know, 40 minutes of television to him in the hopes that the audience will fall in love with him. Because if they didn't, then it wouldn't necessarily matter. Yes, it didn't matter. You know, and Agent Lily Pace is killed. So my question for you, how did you make the audience fall in love with your character?
Come on, man.
Look at him.
Well, I mean, the real truth of it is that Dan Fogelman had written a beautiful character that the whole show turns on. And he looked at me. I was reading for him for the very first time, and he has said this on Twitter or whatever we're calling it, so I can say it. I was not necessarily, on a short list or anything. He really grabbed me early in the process, pulled me through the casting process, kept patting me on the back, telling me to keep going, rooted for me, vouched for me. Then Sterling gave his seal of approval, and I got trusted with one of the most beautiful roles I've ever been given. And then, as Chris said, you step on the set opposite incredible heavy hitters, and you just really have to trust that Dan can't be wrong, right? I must be here because I'm supposed to be, and you fall back on doing what you love to do, which is playing make-believe with your friends. And this show, I really must say, is yet another piece of evidence towards the idea that everything starts at the top and trickles down, and the family environment, the love, the passion that starts with Dan Fogelman and with Sterling K. Brown trickles down, and then I get to be opposite this man. And you know, I remember a big piece of writing was coming my way. We were getting on set and getting ready to do our thing, and you know, I'm clowning around. You know, he's athletic. You know, so I'm like, okay, about to go toe to toe with you, man. And he said, John, it's not a fight. It's a dance. And that he practices what he preaches. And so what I did was I let my dance partner help me move my feet, and hopefully it worked out well. And that goes for everybody.
And you put on makeup, man. Y'all trying to make a brother look
Well, and on the heels of that, I want to also shout out James Marsden, who had a big role as Tony Calvin. And I talked to him previously, and he was saying how when he first watched the show, you know, he talked to Dan and was like, dang, like, the show is good. I wish I was able to stick around a little bit longer, you know, as a character. Did you feel the same kind of about Billy?
Oh my goodness, yeah, no, absolutely. I was, you know, I was happy to be there. I was as sad as you might imagine to die, but to go out for love, you know, I loved too much. That was my only sin. And look at her, guys. You'd fall for it too. If you gotta go, what a way to go. That's all I can say.
But for the fans, I will say, I can say this, he won't get too upset with me. You'll get a chance to see a little bit more Billy and a little bit more James. I got it. I got it.
Thank you.
He's an EP, so you can break it in the day. It's a lot of letters, I don't understand all of them, but I just love doing things.
Well, Juliet, I want to come to you next. I have to admit, I was team Emmy nomination by like episode 5 at the latest with you, and then I think to go and watch you in Hacks. Completely different character. Okay. And you come back and watch this, I think this magnified how incredible you are, as Sinatra, who, you know, I think you do such a great job of making us feel some empathy for this very kind of villainous character. I'm curious, you know, how did you approach her and showing like all those sides?
Thank you. I would agree with John that it really does start with Dan, and I think it was such a gift to me as the actor, and I think for the audience to have that second episode be called Sinatra and about her story, where it just informs everything about who she is when we find her in paradise, and hopefully just brings a little empathy into the experience.
You know, your character also, I feel like, makes a lot of, you know, questionable decisions.
I like that Jane gets blamed for
It wasn't me! Were there any that you kind of found it difficult to kind of wrap your head around? And if so, like, how did you kind of get into her mind?
Yeah, I mean, she makes some extreme choices, for sure, and that's the line she walks. But I feel like ultimately she is trying to, and more will be revealed as the story unfolds. But you know, she believes that she's doing it for the greater good. She believes she's doing it to save her family. She cannot handle another tragedy, and so. You know, if in our first season, if you think, okay, I mean, this is, you know, in her mind, the explorers are to be taken out, but it's the good for the good of everybody else in paradise, for 25,000 people. So it's intense. There are big decisions to make, but you know, she just has to believe that she's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It's a large investment. You're trying to protect your investment.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, I'm coming to you next. I love what you said about your character being earnest. Because I feel like she's sort of similar to Sinatra in the sense of she has this responsibility of kind of keeping things together as well for everyone, but in a very different way. And I kept my eyes on her, kept thinking we were going to see this other side. And I know. Yeah, we don't so far. I know. But so I'm curious what you make of her motivations, and I think particularly she seems really protective of Sinatra and kind of explains away some of her behavior. How do you?
She's just misunderstood.
By your character. Okay.
Yeah, sure, you can call it that.
But what are Dr. Gabriella's kind of motivations for you being in this world and kind of how she fits it?
Like you said earlier, every person on Paradise has a secret. Everyone's hiding something. Everyone is multidimensional and very complex. The interesting thing about Gabriella is she does want what is for the greatest good of everybody, similar to Sinatra. They have the same motives in that respect, right? They're opposite sides of the same coin, and she does have such a history with her that whereas some people might call her evil, Gabriella sees the human. And I think that really is her superpower down there, and why she does fight to keep it intact is because she does see the humanity in every person. And it's almost like she's walking on a different path, but in the end, her goal is very similar to Sinatra.
Okay.
Sinatra reminds me of something my mom used to say when I was a kid. I don't know if anybody else's mom said this. My mom would always say, hurt people hurt people. Yeah. That's what my mom was saying. So it's like, yeah, but I still want to shoot her. Bang, bang. I still give her just a little bullet hole or something. Yeah, but we'll see.
I asked Dan, I was like, was there a world where Sinatra was not coming back? And he was like, no, absolutely not.
No, she's too good.
Yeah.
She's too good.
Well, Chris, I want to talk about Nicole for a little bit too. Our entrance to her is kind of from this affair with Cal, and you kind of think maybe she's just a mistress throughout this series, and then she ends up being this kind of gun-toting revolutionist, which I didn't see, an adversary to Xavier at some point, then an ally. What aspect of your character have you most enjoyed playing out?
Ooh. I mean,
Making that sweet love to that wife.
yeah, getting in bed. Getting in bed wasn't tough. Those days were, like Sterling said, they were long days, they were hard days.
You know what I'm saying? Sweet love, drinking blood, just pouring down my body, just dripping all over.
Took a lot from me. Okay. I love so much about Robinson, and at first I didn't like her at all, actually. I really didn't like her at all because I had only read the first 2 episodes and I just didn't see the there. So what drew me was these guys, and like John was saying, when you're in the hands of folks who know exactly what you're doing, what they're doing, there's no part of you that questions that. But I was not jazzed about her initially because I just couldn't understand this woman who was sort of a bitch and also, sleeping with a married man. And then as time goes on, you learn the humanity of who she is. She doesn't have friends or family down here. She was brought here truly as a soldier with one mission, which is to protect the president. And so we discover early on that her one mission she has failed at. So what's it like to be a woman who's unmoored from her singular focus or singular task? So I think for me it was similarly to what Julianne and both Sarah are saying, finding ways to fall in love with these sort of maybe deplorable characters. I think it's one of the beauties of Dan's writing and all of the writers who put the show together, that each of these characters are both so flawed and yet so beautiful. That's what it means to be a human being who loves his children but leaves his children, who is loyal and kind but also an assassin, who's a humanitarian but also
a humanitarian.
So we could go down the line. Sarah really wants to do some murdering. Sarah has got a knife. She won't be happy. So for me, the easiest bit to play was the part that felt close, which is the sexy, warm, soft parts. And the parts that felt hard were the cold and frigid parts. It took me time to find my sea legs with her. And it's funny, John was saying a second ago how he found so much solace and comfort from working with these guys. And I am gonna embarrass you and make you blush a bit. It was actually in this episode here, and we were at that carnival, and I confessed to John in some of our downtime, and I said, I just don't think I know what I'm doing. This was after, and I'm sure in a room full of writers and actors, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where you've been doing something for a long time, and then you start to question, like, do I know what I'm doing? And this was after the writer's strike, and after having had a baby. And so I just shared with John, I was like, I just feel so out of my skin. And you were just so kind to me that day and reminded me, like, you're where you need to be and you're doing what you need to be doing. So anyway, that's my long and short of playing Nicole.
I mean, was I right?
Yes,
Just calls them like I sees them, that's all.
Nicole, coming to you. You are the one I have my eyes on for season 2. I love the finale, which I won't talk about here in case someone hasn't seen yet. But I'm kind of backing off of what Chris just said. I'm curious, what parts of Jane did you find most challenging to portray? Because we know she obviously has a couple different sides.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it was just in the script. And I definitely looked to our directors and our writers for, you know, additional context of where Jane was coming from. We had a full week this week diving into some stuff in season 2, and I was reminded that like some days are really weirdly easy to play Jane. And other days I'm like, ooh, yeah, like this is hard, you know. So. I was really grateful for the opportunity and still am. I think I've probably said this before, but the scene where Jane runs in and sees Billy dead, you know, there were a lot of tears. You were having a heavy moment, and John was made up to look, you know, a day old.
Even paler.
Yeah, somehow.
You got color, Brad. No.
But yeah, that was confusing, you know, because Jane is visibly very upset and crying over someone she lost, but she's pretending, and so I would be like on top of John crying, and then they'd call cut, and I'd be like, yeah, all right, and she just kind of have to lay there. But yeah, toward the end of the day, I was like, okay, this is weird because she did this and she's crazy, and yeah. So sometimes it hits you and you're like, ooh, but most of the time it was really fun.
Do you have any regrets? All right, if you don't. No?
Well, lastly, I just kind of wanted to talk about the fact that you are already in production for season 2, which made me so excited. And also that you're filming here in LA, which is becoming very you know, how do you get back on set in the streets, you know, in Los Angeles at this point?
It feels freaking fantastic. During the hiatus, I was blessed to do a few projects, but none of them here. I went to Louisiana, I went to France, I went to Australia, and it's like, I talked to a lot of my crew, and this is real talk, a lot of people left the city because it's too expensive a place to live and not work. So folks are living in New Mexico, living in Tennessee, living wherever they are, but came back to do the show. So I'm really super hopeful that we can bring more production back to LA because we have a best crew. We have a talent, a pool full of people that want to be here because this city represents opportunity. So let's make sure we keep opportunities present.
That's right. I just want to say, I want to piggyback into what Sterling said, because I was actually thinking about this in the car on the way over here, is, you know, before the show, I was traveling for close to 17 years. I was on the road, and I'm a single mom of 3 kids, and it was always such a struggle anytime I had to leave, and then when I left for a longer period of time, I pulled the kids out of school, and it was just like the traveling circus, here we come. And so, if it weren't for Sterling, this show would not be here. He really, you know, exercised his power in a beautiful way. He and Dan and was because of him that the show is happening here, that people are able to be employed, that I can stay home with my children, thank you. And it's really beautiful when a person in a position of influence uses it in such a positive way.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all for being here. I think we're going to
God bless you all. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.